Anheuser-Busch is working hard to win back customers. Bud Light tumbled from its spot as America's top-selling beer after transgender social media star Dylan Mulvaney posted a video showing the personalized Bud Light cans the company sent her as part of an online promotion. Anheuser-Busch US CEO Brendan Whitworth spoke about the recent controversy in an exclusive interview on CBS Mornings.
It's been a challenging few weeks, and I think the conversation surrounding Bud Light has moved away from beer, and the conversation has become divisive. And Bud Light really doesn't belong there. Bud Light should be all about bringing people together. And there's been impact on the business, and I think that's publicly covered on Bud Light specifically.
Let's bring in E.J. Schultz to talk more about this. He's the news editor for Ad Age. So, E.J., I want to play a little bit more of what Brendan Whitworth told us about the feedback that he's taking away from this controversy.
The feedback is to reinforce what Bud Light has always meant to them, which is good times, goodwill, and easy enjoyment. And we have that all packed inside of our summer campaign that we launched last week. We're in the middle of the NFL. I know Nate's not here, but we're in the middle of our NFL campaign that'll be out in a few weeks. It's right there. And I think the fact remains that millions and millions of consumers enjoy Bud Light each and every day.
All right, so he talked about how he wants Bud Light to be perceived, but the more important questions and the answers that he gave in that interview, EJ, had to do with in the past, Anheuser-Busch did support LGBTQ plus folks. They in 2019 were very prominent to display rainbow flagged bottles. In other words, rainbow bottles for all of Pride Month, right? That they were selling across the United States. So I asked him, how do you marry that support that Anheuser-Busch says that they have? Here's that photo that they have for LGBTQ plus Pride with the political arm of Anheuser-Busch donating to anti-LGBTQ candidates and political campaigns. And so the question, of course, is how does a company navigate that when they don't expect the blowback for something that they've done in the past to be what it was?
Right. We've seen Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch in the past several years spend a lot of energy trying to reach Gen Z. And a lot of Gen Z consumers want brands to be inclusive. They want brands to show diversity in their marketing. But what I think this incident shows is, for Bud Light anyway, it's a stark reminder to them that a majority or a big part of their consumer base does not want them to go into that territory. And so that's sort of what the bind that they're in, and that I think came across during this interview. They're trying to sort of move away from that now and talk more about the beer. But can they do that in a way that changes the conversation? Well, that's the question.
So what are the sort of ads that worked for them in the past? And, you know, it seems like what they're trying to do is sort of double down on what they've done before, but they're not in the same position anymore.
And they're also not in the same position, but the marketing industry is in a different position. Brands for years, last several years, you try to micro-target. You might send a broad-based message on a TV ad, but then talk to a specific community on your Twitter handle. Well, what we've seen now is that everyone sees everything, right? So that's part of how they got in trouble here, is that the fans, the drinkers that saw the Instagram posts from the transgender influencer, some of them didn't like that, and that became a major story. So it doesn't really matter what they're doing with the rest of their marketing, as people are fixated on that.
Now, he did say and reiterate that the company does support LGBTQ plus people, but it is interesting too, is what you're saying here. You're trying to thread that needle. On one hand, they're talking about a very vocal group of their consumers. The question, of course, is not only are there consumers who want them to take a stand. In other words, at one point, Tony asked him, look, he says he didn't know that this campaign was happening. And that's expected. Okay. He's the CEO, and not every little campaign and marketing detail is going to come across his desk. But the question was, if you had known, would you have stopped it? Or would you have given it the green light?
What did he say?
He wouldn't answer. Wouldn't answer that. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it shows exactly what kind of tough position he's in, because he's kind of damned whatever answer he gives on that question, right? Because one side of the political aisle is not going to like it. And so he's trying to thread the needle, and they're trying to move away from the conversation by shifting the conversation, as we've seen with the new ad that they put out today that you guys showed a little bit of, talking more about their employees, their distributors, people out in the heartland of America. That's how they're trying to change the conversation right now.
So, EJ, I just want to ask you like more of an umbrella question because yes, Bud Light, this is a big deal for Bud Light, but we've seen other brands over the last month have to sort of navigate this. Target, and they put some of their items to the back of the store, and they said it's more about keeping our employees safe. So they didn't have to talk about whether or not they were, sort of where they were socially with the social messaging. But you point out that younger people want brands to take a stand. Yeah. What we've seen over the past 10 years or so, beauty brands embracing diversity. You've had, Victoria's Secret had to, change the models that they use because people wanted to see this. But the way people feel about topics clearly can change from one presidential, administration to another or whatever. Can you talk just a little bit about the brands that maybe have successfully navigated this delicate balance?
Yeah, I think it really kind of depends on the category. I think some of the beauty brands you mentioned have a little bit more license to speak about some of these things. Historically, they've been in that position. Dove, for instance, for years has talked about real beauty and getting beyond superficial beauty and those kinds of issues. The beer category is a little bit different. It's still a system, it's still an industry that is dispersed across the country with distributors basically in any small town in America, where the politics are very different. And so they're on the front lines of this. You've seen, what AB is trying to do now is help some of these distributors that have been targeted because of this one single social media post. And they've given them financial incentives, all this kind of stuff. They're bending over backwards to try to make things right with these groups.
Maybe the thing is that, yes, young people want businesses, companies, brands to take some sort of social stand on certain issues, but not every company or product. Not every company or product has an audience that wants that, and maybe it's more about the product than it is about the issue.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Maybe they just wanted a cold beer and keep politics out of it.
Yeah.
If you are taking a stand, it does have to link back to the product in some way, right? So what we're seeing Bud Light do is put beer back into position of bringing people together. And I think had that been their initial response to this, they might have been in a better position today if they had just literally said, listen, we're a beer for everyone, no matter who you are. If that was their initial response, rather than just sort of going silent for the first several weeks of this, maybe they could have avoided some of this. And that's because that's a value that basically anyone can understand, right?
Completely.
It's just beer.
That's a good point.
That's a great point. EJ Schultz, thank you very much.
Thank you.